you can't focus on finding, the really expensive talent because you will
Right.
lose every single time. What we discovered as a startup, so we don't have the budget of, if let's say Coca-Cola were to decide they needed, developers to build this crazy product, they'll suck the life out of, out of the whole ecosystem just
Yeah.
because there's a budget.
Yeah.
We've had to specialize in finding diamonds in the rough, and that's what we discovered early on. It's expensive and sometimes a waste of time to find like really top tier talent because it's uh, they're gonna have their own um, ways of working,
Mm.
which will take a little harder to adapt to our ways. So in terms of and I'm just speaking on the developer side, although I feel the same way for our operations.
Mm.
Um, you can't focus on finding the really expensive talent because you will
Right.
lose every single time.
Mm. Okay.
We just don't have the budget. We don't have the huge organizational structure to support it.
Yeah.
So we've been very lucky to have identified this kind of line of thinking early on. Our first thought, obviously, both of us having come from a merit-based community in the US, that hey, if you're asking for this level salary, you deserve it.
Mm.
There's a reason why.
Mm.
Um, and very you quickly realize that's not really the case.
Mm.
Uh, a lot of salaries being asked for now is driven by the perceived demand
Mm.
versus actual background and experience and the level of unique thinking you can bring to the table. So it's different, because there's some sort of standardization when it comes to talent in Western countries or first world countries. We don't really see that in the Philippines.
Mm.
So one major thing that we discovered, or I guess we should have known, is a senior dev in the US is a person who has gone through um, uh, usually a startup type environment where you're
Mm.
building something and you're sticking to it through several
Mm.
years.
Yeah.
You know, whereas a senior dev in the Philippines, for the most part, probably about 50-75% is someone who worked for a boutique dev
Mm.
firm
Yeah.
who does work for other people.
Yeah.
So the job ownership isn't fully, built out in that
Right.
person
Right.
because they're used to skipping around different projects.
Right.
But what we're looking for is somebody who has taken a project from MVP to V1, V2, V3, and dealt with every single, bug and scenario. So there's a difference,
Mm.
and we're looking for the other one.
Yeah.
Hiring for us, the most important thing was us finding out what is the market rate, and Farah was really good at that. He's like, no, I'm not gonna pay someone X amount to do double X work.
Mm.
And so obviously you have to make sure you have the money for that. You have the runway for that, and you have that plotted where that money will last you until until you deliver the product. So first is really match the market. Don't don't underpay, especially
Mm.
Filipinos. Don't
Right.
we Our firm belief is Filipinos are just as deserving
Mm.
of Western salaries, even though we can't afford it. We will try to get close to it. You
Right.
know, um, the second step is one thing I think might be unique to the CTO or unique to the person doing the hiring, which is applying just the brunt, you know, of your 20 years of background into the interview.
Mm.
And I'm not going to pretend to know what it is in Farah's case because he was a dev for 20 years.
Mm.
So when you speak to a dev and you ask the right questions, it comes out.
Right.
So this might not be the best content, but surprisingly, what worked for us is really we've been offered, I will do this much pre-interview, whatever. But when Farah interviews, within the first 30 minutes, we already know
Right.
this person's right for the job.
Yeah.
Is not bullshitting his resume.
Mm.
His CV's not padded with keywords. So he just kind of made it. It was this thing where, I guess that's what you can call our process, which is we will personally interview immediately. Like you're interviewing the CTO. You're not
Right.
interviewing middle manager
Okay.
or whatever.
So first interview is with the CTO.
Yeah, the first interview is literally with Farah,
right?
And then the middle managers.
Right.
Although back then we didn't have any. So it's important that we not waste our time. Sitting here for 3 hours giving tests and whatever. It's really just a matter of personally speaking to someone and asking the right questions.
Right. Okay.
So that's why I say it's unique.
So you guys didn't give tests?
No, believe it or not, we very, very few.
Right.
Yeah. From I know of only like a couple.
Right.
Because if you know your stuff, some questions will lead right to it.
Okay.
If you get flustered or get backed into a corner by a simple question that can be answered by somebody with the knowledge you say you have,
right.
That's a BS CV.
What are your thoughts on background checks?
It's hit or miss for us. For me in the ops team, I've done background checks, so this is different from devs.
Yeah.
One thing we noticed is some people will obviously only give you the favorable people to call,
right?
Because it's that they left on not great terms or whatever. And I've done background checks where it checked out really well and the employee didn't pan out. So it's hit or miss, man. I mean, but if you were to ask me, better to do it than not. It's hard to find that, like I said, we've had to really specialize in diamonds in the rough. Yeah, I'd like to say that each one of my hires have been like a multiple X. Maybe it's what we should segment this into is how many X's, because we're happy with a hire that does what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about 10x guys, yes, maybe less than 5% of our total hires, and I can tell you right now, there was no way I could have identified it up front, except for, because everybody says, everybody will tell you what they want, what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yes, I will do this much work, and I am a starter, self-starter, whatever. But you immediately spot in training. I don't really think it's ever in the hiring, but more in the training and in as the questions come out and the insight they have into what you do.
Yeah.
Then you start realizing, hey, this guy's asking all the right questions that maybe I would have asked or I didn't even think to ask.
Yeah.
So right now I have one 10x that I'm very proud of. I have a couple who are trying to be, and I'll give them credit for that.
Right.
Personalities will come out immediately, in the first month.
Yeah.
Even though they say, I'm this, I'm a self-starter. The guys that come into work, when your clock in is at 9 and they're at 9:05 consistently, that tells you something. So you tell that in the first week. We're now at what team of I think 15 or 17 devs, or 14 devs. So it's taken quite a bit of digging to get to the the dev persona, I guess, the team persona that we're trying to build, because devs in general are, they learn at their pace. And you'll get one of two types. I hate to generalize, because there are guys out there that are amazing, people, really, and I'm not going to generalize. But what we've seen are a couple of personas, and one would be like, somebody who is in it for the long term. And unfortunately, that's like 80-20, the 80% being the guys that are in it for that big jump in salary, because that salary is what is going to propel the next jump in salary. Yeah. So, and the commitment of one versus the others is it's different. So we have to look for the guys that aren't like, oh, I'm app developer, so now I should be at like whatever. Instead of, hey, what are you building? That's the question I want to hear. What are you building? How can I help build it?
Right.
That's so interesting. I want to be a part of this.